Murder in Ocean View by J.K. Jones. The Case of Annie Young. Chapter 1 9 years ago. The morning was crisp, the sun climbing slowly over the horizon, bathing everything in a soft golden hue. Bobby, Billy, and Donnie Miller stood beside the family car, the laughter of their voices bouncing off the pavement. Bobby was the quiet one, Billy the outgoing spark, and Donnie the thoughtful, reflective one. Their mom, Rose Miller, was bustling around, making sure they didn't forget anything for the big day. "Don't forget your cap, Bobby," she called out, her smile warm and proud. Bobby nodded, smoothing down the front of his graduation gown, nervous excitement making him fidget. It was a special day, graduation day. Even though it was only a short ride to the venue, the anticipation hung in the air like a sweet promise. Billy, ever the clown, spun around dramatically, his arms wide. "Come on, guys, it's graduation day. I mean, how many times do you get to say that?" he said with a laugh, nudging Donnie playfully. Donnie just grinned and shook his head. "You never stop talking, do you?" "I could say the same about you, Mr. Always Deep," Billy shot back. They exchanged brief, affectionate glances. Their mom, Rose, had the same smile on her face as she checked the back seat. "Everyone ready?" Her voice full and warm, but tingled with the edge of motherly concern. Bobby gave her a thumbs up and they piled into the car. Bobby in the front passenger seat, Donnie in the back, and Billy sitting beside him. The energy between them was electric, an excitement that couldn't be dampened by something as trivial as a cramped back seat. The engine hummed to life and Rose pulled out of the driveway, her car bouncing gently over the uneven road. The streets were quiet for most part, just the occasional car passing by, the sound of a distant chatter of laughter carried in the breeze. The mood was light and joyful. Their entire future was ahead of them, and full of possibilities. It felt as though the world was wide open. Then, without warning, the screech of tires filled the air, a piercing, gut-churning sound that made Bobby's stomach drop. Before anyone could react, a dark sedan came barreling from the side street, slamming into the side of the Miller car with a force that sent everything spinning. The world seemed to slow down for those first few seconds. Bobby's heart pounded, his body stiff with shock. He turned instinctively to look at his mom, who had just moments before been smiling as she drove them to a day they'd remember forever. The impact threw the car into a violent spin, tossing them like rag dolls. Time seemed to stretch, and in the midst of the chaos, Bobby could hear Billy's voice. A shout, a cry, but then silence. The car came to a stop, a sickening crunch of metal and glass filling the air. The smell of burning rubber and gasoline mixed with the faint scent of blood, sharp and metallic. Billy's vision blurred as he tried to push open the door, his head trembling, reaching for his seatbelt. His heart slammed into his chest. "Mom, Billy," he gasped out the names, but his voice barely made it past his lips. He couldn't see anything, couldn't think straight. There was nothing but the ringing in his ears. He turned to look at Billy, but the world around him was collapsing, and Billy wasn't moving. The sounds of the crash, the screeching, the glass breaking, echoed in his skull, but all he could focus on was the silence that filled the car where his brother had been. "Billy! Billy!" Bobby's voice broke, raw and desperate. His mom, too, was still a stone. A flash of terror filled Bobby's chest, and he twisted, pulling at his seatbelt with shaking hands. But there was nothing, no movement, only the hollow, unending silence. When the paramedics arrived minutes later, the world had already started to feel foreign, unreal. Bobby had somehow managed to crawl out of the back seat, a massive gash on his head, but his eyes were wide and unseeing. The faces of the responders were blurring into one, their hands working frantic, practiced motions, but Bobby could barely breathe. He couldn't focus. His mind kept replaying the same sickening loop. Billy's last smile, his laugh, the jolt of the crash, and then silence. They had tried, but it was too late. Billy was gone. Rose's mom was too. Bobby stared at the wreckage, the scene around him spinning, his body frozen. The day had been meant to mark a beginning. Instead, it had torn everything apart, leaving only shards of what once was. As the sirens wailed in the distance, Bobby couldn't help but wonder how the world could keep turning around when his heart had stopped. Bobby's anger burned like wildfire, sudden, consuming, and beyond his control. It wasn't the kind of rage that could be shouted out or broken against a wall. It sat in his chest like a weight made of iron and fire, pressing against his ribs, choking the breath from his throat. His fist clenched, not because he wanted to fight, but because he didn't know what else to do with the fury. It came with questions that had no answers, the blame that had nowhere to land. So it turned inward, poisoning every thought, every heartbeat. Seeing his mother and brother lying still, robbed of warmth and voice, something inside Bobby shattered. But what rose from the pieces wasn't sorrow. Not yet. It was the sharp, hot scream of a soul betrayed. The world had crossed a line. Someone, something, had taken from him the two people who made his life make sense. And now the center was gone, ripped away. His anger wasn't just grief, it was a refusal to accept the loss. It was a scream against the silence, against fate, against whatever God had turned away. Donnie would never be the same. He would need to rely on Bobby from now on, unable to think properly by himself. Bobby would sue on behalf of he and his brother. The monies they received could not make up for the loss. The fire of revenge burned deep within him.